Hi everybody, my name is Damila Akinde and my article is called The Brain at Work, written by Adrian Fox. So I know you might be thinking, well, why are we studying the brain? This is a business class because I certainly was. But as HR professionals, as we start to venture into our career, we're going to be dealing with people 24/7. So we need to know why people are the way they are, why they are wired this way, and things like that. So for us to know that, we need to dive into the brain. And I'm gonna open up with a question. So have you ever had the motivation to do something, whether it's being more active, waking up earlier, or starting a new routine, and you found yourself not sticking to your newly found plan? So we can see instances like this when the a year ends and we're venturing into the new year, and we start to make our plans or our goals, our expectations for the new year, and we just find ourselves like halfway through the new year that we didn't stick to our plan, we didn't stick to the original plan. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what's going on? Is something wrong with me? And things like that. But I'm here to tell you that do not feel bad. It's not you, it's your brain. So as we go into the PowerPoint, I'm going to be answering the questions like, why does the brain find it hard to stick to a new routine? Or why is it hard to train the brain? Why do we only retain a fraction of what we learn? And why do employees get some type of fulfillment when they're complimented by their managers or supervisors? Well, we can also find peace in learning that there are scientific explanations and evidence as to why this happens. So the science of it all. So thanks to the joining of psychology, which is the human mind and behavior, and the neuroscience, which is the psychological study of the brain can get the spotlight it deserves, and we can finally get insight on the brain and the role it plays when it comes to human behavior and human characteristics. So technologies like MRI helps us to get insight on the brain. So MRI can helps help us to study the neural connection and activity in the living brain. So the person doesn't have to be dead for us to know how the brain works and the role that it plays in characteristics and behavior. And as these scientific discoveries are made, it can help us as HR professionals to not just go off our hunches, but to state facts that have been proven. So old dogs, new tricks. So fun fact: before the brain plasticity was discovered, scientists believed that the brain was hardwired. Well, what does that mean? It means that they thought that the brain could not change and it was a machine and it couldn't grow. Well, as new discoveries were made, we found out that that is not true, and the brain does change and it does grow. And of course, when we start getting older, it is harder for us to do things that we used to do when we were younger. So at the age of 30, we tend to stop grasping new concepts, and our brain's ability to learn starts to decrease and shrink. So that's why we go to school when we're younger, because we grasp things easily, like our brain is still in the developmental stage. And just like it's hard teaching an old dog, if you want your dog to learn new tricks, you're gonna put in effort. So if you want your brain to pick up new routine and pick up new information, it's gonna require effort. So in this picture here, it's basically saying what I said, and the brain is able to change based on experiences. So make learning stick. So how does the brain store information? So when information is gotten, it goes to the working memory, which is temporary. So the working memory is a part of the brain where it stores temporary information and it discards information that we don't need. So the capacity is so small that it can't store information permanently. So that's why it has to be transferred to the basal ganglia. So what is the basal ganglia? The basal ganglia is a part of the brain that stores routine activity. So this is why we're able to go to school. This is why we're able to um, sleep at a certain time. This is why we're able to eat at a certain time. I know for me, I can't eat breakfast because my body's not wired that way. So the basal ganglia, my basal ganglia has stored that I can't eat breakfast. So this is the first question in the study guide, and it says, what does training and sleep impact the manner in which information moves from the working memory to the basal ganglia? Basal ganglia, that's a tongue twister. Well, the answer is, since the working memory uses a lot of energy to store information we are learning and tires the brain out, sleep helps the brain integrate and hardwire the brain so we could come back and learn more. This process is called memory consolidation. So for our brain to store our routine activity permanently, we have to sleep. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but let's say if you've had a long day and you come back and you're trying to realize what you did throughout the day, it's kind of hard to know every fact and stuff like that because of temporary information. Like I said, the working memory stores the information that we need and just throws out the other information. So, why is sleep essential? Why is it recommended that we spend a third of our day sleeping? Why is it recommended that we get 8 hours of rest? Or even if we're not sleeping, we at least try to sleep for at least 6 to 8 hours. Well, it is because that sleep helps transport our memories from the previous day to the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is where memories are stored. And the REM phase, which is the most important phase in sleep, and it's also known as the rapid eye movement phase. This is where the memories go to the hippocampus. And I know the hippocampus and the basal ganglia serve similar duties, but they're not the same. So the basal ganglia stores routine activity and the hippocampus stores our memories. So because of the hippocampus, we're able to go back and remember what happened previously in the previous day, and this is where all our memories are stored. So in this picture here, I have a picture of the brain and its different parts. So the cerebral hemisphere, cerebral cortex, the forebrain, frontal lobe, and as you can see in number 6, this is the basal ganglia. It kind of looks like a tomato to me. And in number 4, this is the hippocampus. So they are very close, so which would make sense that they store, they have similar duties, but they store different things. So I'm just gonna divert our thinking to number 5, which is the amygdala, if I'm saying it right, and this is where our fear circuits are. And we're going to be talking more about that in our slides. So why the brain needs others. So the brain is a social animal. The brain loves it when it's challenged. The brain loves challenges. So that's why I remember when we were little, like around 2nd grade, 3rd grade, we used to have quantitative reasoning, and this is where we'll solve math problems. And they will give us like a timer, and we'll have to solve math problems as fast as possible. It's good for the brain because the brain likes it when it's challenged, and the brain also finds fear judgment important. So for example, in the workplace, when you're judged on your performance and you're judged fairly, the brain loves that. And when this happens, the reward centers in our brain light up, and it's the same when we see a loved one or when we eat good food. So I know as college students, when we go home for a holiday or something and we see homemade food in the kitchen, that's the same feeling as when we are judged fairly in the workplace. So when we are judged fairly in the workplace, or when we eat good food, or when we see a loved one, there's a hormone being released. So serotonin is the hormone being released when we are happy, and this is a good hormone. And cortisol is a hormone being released when we are stressed out or when we feel like we're not heard in the workplace. It's a good hormone because your brain is excreting the bad energy or the bad stress out. And this is the second question. It is, what impact does serotonin or cortisol have on the brain? Well, my answer was that because serotonin is the happy hormone, it helps in learning. And because we are happy in the workplace, it opens our minds to ideas and creates new ideas. When cortisol is released in the brain, it shuts down and closes up to any ideas. So, for example, let's say we're diminished in the workplace or we just had a bad day. Most likely, cortisol has been released in our brain, so we just tend to shut down or tend to just close up to any new ideas for that day or for that period. So, stress and uncertainty on the brain. So, stress happens when we go against our brain's natural routine or abilities. So, when this happens, the basal ganglia is alerted. And if stress is not contained and it goes on for a certain period of time, it's known as prolonged stress. And prolonged stress or stress in general can make us think unclearly, and if not contained, it can shut down our brain. This is the third question in the study guide, and it says, what impact does prolonged stress have on the brain? Well, my answer is that prolonged stress releases high levels of cortisol, and it shrinks the hippocampus and reduces the production of neurons that aid in memories, mood, and mental functions. So if you remember, the hippocampus is the part of the brain that stores our memories. So when prolonged stress is having an effect on the brain, cortisol is released, and the hippocampus goes into overdrive by making us not remember what is making us stress, if that makes sense. But when an expectation is met, dopamine is released, and dopamine is the hormone that helps us to think clearly, which is very, very essential in the workplace. But when there's uncertainty detected, the fear circuits are alerted. So if you remember, I said that we're going to talk about the fear circuits, and they're alerted when there's uncertainty in our mind. And this is the fourth question on our study guide. What impact does uncertainty have on the brain? Well, the answer is it reduces functioning and decision making, and it also increases adrenaline levels. Now, this is where we come in as future HR professionals. So what can HR do to help? Well, by having the knowledge in psychology, which is the study of the human mind, and behavior, and neuroscience, which is the psychological study of the brain, we can help the workplace from getting toxic. And how can we help employees learn and retain more information long term? Well, we can break the training that we have for employees into sections and parts. So this means that they don't have to learn everything at once. We can stretch out the training sessions from a week to 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And when we see employees and their stress levels getting high, we as HR professionals can help promote stress reducing activities. For example, fitness classes, dance classes, massage, or even hold a seminar that brings awareness to stress. Well, we have come to the end of this presentation, and I hope that you were able to learn something and you'll be able to use it in your career as HR professionals. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening.